Welcome to video 4. We're getting closer. So, since last time, we got a straight fitting on that for the breather, a little filter. Once it's in the back of the mower, I'll make an extension that goes up, and it'll probably tuck up under the seat so that it's always up higher than whatever water or anything I'm going through, so that that doesn't mix with the gear oil that is now in the bottom of that instead of grease. I got an air filter from Tractor Supply and a couple different size belts to make up the adjustment for the much smaller pulley on the rear. So what we're going to do is get this flipped up and take the old belt out, and we'll have to, we took off some of the tensioner pulleys, and it looks like also going to have to take off there's a steering gear shaft that runs between there, and if I undo those two bolts, I could pull that shaft back to get the old belt out. For our first run, we're going to use the original size crank pulley, and if it's too slow, we will adapt and make that larger crank pulley that was for the cutting deck and flip it to the top side. This is the clutch setup, and once I get some of this better situated, I'll show you undoing the steering wheel and pulling the old belt off. So that's what we're going to start with. These are the tires for the rear. They are 25 by 10 by 12. Decent amount of tread still on them. They still have the little mold release spikes on the side there. I had to patch one of them because it had a slice in it, but I was able to find some pretty heavy duty internal patches and used rubber cement. So both of those are holding there nice. So for the test run, it's going to be stock pulley on the crank, no bearings in the front tires, 25 by 10 by 12, 25 tall by 10 wide by 12 inch rim. We might go up to a 26 inch tall tire. The smaller 3-inch pulley on the rear, and it's looking like I got 91, 92, 93, and 94 inch long belts by ½ inch thickness, because the original one was 101.5 inches. And I'll share a little math trick that I found on one of the Mower forums for that, to adjust your belt size if you're using the stock locations for pulleys and tensioners. There's instead of doing all the mathematical equation, you can just it's basically minus 1.57 inches in the belt length for every inch in pulley diameter that you decrease. So going from an 8-inch pulley to a 3-inch pulley, you subtract that out, and then you minus your multiply the 1.57 by the difference in inches to get your different belt size. Now, if that crank pulley is going to be larger, then the belt size isn't going to change as much, because you're making that front one bigger and the rear one smaller, so it kind of makes up for it. So you have to deal with like a plus and minus kind of situation. But we might still go with this cast iron 6-inch pulley, and then put a spacer and a washer, and just take that whole original pulley setup off, because I think this cast one is going to be a little bit sturdier of a setup. But we shall see. We're also going to change out this air filter that's in here because this thing has been run for a few years, I think, without decent maintenance on it. So we got the new one here. It has the paper filter, and it also has like a screen rodent pre-filter to keep stuff from building nests in there. This time of year, everywhere is a hiding spot for mice and stuff like that. So, and this one I know is nasty because I checked it, but I didn't have one to replace it at the time. So this is all right full of junk. So we're going to take this, and the pre-filter actually goes in the bottom. There's two little like inlet slits for the intake. And this will sit side down. And this will go right on top of that. So there's one part of our regular maintenance done. Cover back on. These are pretty easy. They just have a couple little tabs. It sits right in there. And then a couple set screws. It's got new fuel line on it. That was one of the first things I did when I got it. Shut off valve, fuel filter. Engine oil, that's been changed. So we'll finish getting the steering undone, and then probably get the transaxle in there and start test fitting belts and see which one fits the best. Well, it took me a minute to figure out the trick to this one. So there's two bolts that you undo on the top of this, and you have to pull the steering gear backwards to get it up off of this tooth set, because it has a little lip. And then once you get that, you can reach up top where the steering wheel is and pry on that flat tab there, and then it gives you just enough room to sneak the old belt out and put the new one through. I think we're going to try starting with the 93-inch belt and adjust from there. If I'm not going to put the steering back together until I know that the belt size is working out with the clutch setup. But we're going to try the 93 first, because that's kind of towards the middle of the size range that I got to try. So, all right, we got the belt sit up inside there, and our clutch pulley's back on, and then that's just tucked up in the corner for now. Our transaxle is ready to go in. On these, I think I'm going to put the bolts up through from the bottom this time, even though there's like support fins and stuff like that. It'll just be one less thing to get caught up on. I am going to make some bracing to go over the top, and then like a skid plate for under the bottom of this. But this is basically the mock-up process. Like, everything is still dirty. Once we get to a better spot, we'll get everything power washed off, and I'll measure for making skid plates for the underside of the mower, which will also keep mud out of the belt system and act as a bracing between the frame rails. Because even though they're thick and like a C-channel, there still is going to be flex with the areas that we're going to be using this thing. So the more stability, the better. And so let's get this transaxle in and fit some tires up and see how that looks. Well, this might be a little bit too much of a juggling act, so I'm going to set up a stand for the transaxle and get a few bolts started. Well, this is a little bit too much of a juggling act right now, so I'm going to get something to prop up under this transaxle, and then get a few of these front brackets started, and then we'll swing the rest of this up into its mounts. Okay, so to get this started, I had to loosen these front brace brackets because this shift arm has to come up, and there's a round centering upper support for the shifter that has to fit through that, and I couldn't get the arm for the shifter up over the edge of the frame with these still tight and in the way. And then I put bolts up through the bottom just to hold this up for now while I get the rest of this situated. So these will bolt in, this will tighten up. I'll get the shifter linkage hooked up, and then we can get the belt, which right now is tucked up to the corner there. We can get the belt hooked on there and check to see if it's going to be too short or too long. And I really think most of it's going to be the way the clutch is set up, if it pulls the clutch out of the way enough. So we might have to go with a shorter belt, but I got a few options to try, so we will go from there. We're on the shortest belt, the 91 inch, and it is fitting, but the clutch still overlapping into the non-tension side of the belt. So I think I'm going to have to, one solution would be get a shorter belt, so it'll probably be 88, 89 inches if we keep with the stock crank pulley, or what I am going to try is flipping the crank pulley to the larger side and see if that takes up enough of the slack that the 91 inch would work with the shortest belt have. So the point we're at now is getting this last tire on. This side, this is how I test fit this side. So it looks like with some trimming, Height-wise, I could go 26, and width-wise, I could probably go 11 or 12, depending on what I felt like doing when I need to buy the next set of tires for it. But, so this one, keyway's in, and we just got to line this up. Then we got 2 washers and a retaining E-clip. So that's on. Now we're in pretty good shape. So we'll get our first look. It's not on the ground yet, but that's pretty good. There's definitely room for wider tires. But I like how that fits. And we'll get it tipped up, and I'll show you flipping around the crank pulley and see how that looks. Now I can show you a little better what's going on. We're going to flip this to the larger pulley size, or try. If we can't, we will put that one-piece pulley and spacer and a washer. This coming from up there, under, through, it's good until it gets down to here. So we need to take up more slack or get a shorter belt, because the clutch is crossing over top of where that belt is sitting right now. So I think the pulley size should be enough of a difference to make that work. But we'll find out in a few minutes here. So, good news and bad news. The stock crank pulley is keyed by press. So that means the bottom of this is just nothing. There's no keyway built into the bottom of that. So this is actually, as far as how it rides on, is the same size as this other one. The lip is just longer on the stock pulley. And I think I have some 1/4-inch keyway. I gotta check my toolbox. But this does fit up here on the shaft, but it runs into where the belt guards and stuff were. So I have 2 options. I can either unbolt the motor and tilt it back slightly so I can get this pulley on there and started, which is probably the better of the 2 ideas, because then these will be like a safety measure. If anything ever came loose or let loose, that pulley would still be stuck in this upper portion. Or I cut the metal away and then I could bolt over like a crossbar to do the same thing. I'm not sure which way I'm going yet, but I gotta check to see if I got that piece of key stock to fit that. But it looks like with the larger pulley in the front, can't promise, but the shortest belt I have should work. Either way, we're making it one piece at a time, little upgrades as we go. I gotta swap out my batteries on the little impact I got here, and we'll be popping wheelies after Christmas. Just a little preview of what's to come. Hope everybody has a great Christmas, holidays, and a great new year. Hope you got fun stuff lined up with your family and your friends. Everybody stay safe, and have a good end of 2024. Thanks. See you later.